Whenever we think of a trilogy, some of the world famous movies pop into our thoughts. The iconic characters,
I can't remember the last time that you invited me to your house for a cup of coffee. Even though my wife is godmother to your only child.
their most famous dialogues,
It wasn't hard. See, madness, as you know, is like gravity. All it takes is a little push.
the visual treat they offer us, and the gripping plot. Everything is just reminiscent. Hey everybody, this is the alternate reality. Today we are here not to discuss the greatness of these well-known movies, but to add some more trilogies to the existing list. The action comedy Cornetto Trilogy by Edgar Wright is a story of a dull and sluggish Sean who lives with his messy friend Ed. It is all about how they deal with the different mysterious situations they are thrown into and then how they come over their hangover with a cornetto. Director Wright did not initially start with an idea of making a trilogy, but the success of the first two cornettos tempted him for one more. The Hot Fuzz was inspired by almost 100 action movies which turned out to be as successful as Shaun of the Dead.
Freeze? No, I got brainwave. Get us back to the station, now!
But The World's End ended up with mixed opinions owing to its dark and gritty nature. We see a specific cornetto flavor appearing in each of these films in connection with the theme of the movie. We will remember the films for their funny characters and the mess they are involved in, so don't miss them. M. Night Shyamalan created a modern superhero and a supervillain with his Unbreakable trilogy, contrasting the regular superhero films in many ways. The hero Davin Dunn, an ordinary security guard who is the sole survivor of a horrific train crash, has a superpower. But he's pretty much grounded in reality and doesn't even believe about his powers until proven by the crippled and broken mastermind Elijah Price. Though Unbreakable was an average opener in theaters, it was later regarded as a classic. The films refer to comic books but are not derived from any comic book. Each of the films support the idea that being broken elicits a demon in anyone. Director Shyamalan builds a lot of tension and uses many metaphors but failed to meet expectations in the final part, Glass. Some audience feel it's a bit late, but you must know what a crippled man can do to two physically powerful men. Over the last few years, the Mexican filmmaker Alejandro G. Inarritu became the face of Mexican cinema after winning back-to-back Academy Awards for Birdman and The Revenant. But his earlier work is way more raw and remarkable. His first three films, known as the Death Trilogy, is more violent, messy, and are made on a low budget and handheld camera works, unlike the later ones which are more of American films. These films are not just violent dramas, but they also portray the socio-economic inequalities and brutal abuse in society. Each film deals with the idea of death, brutal violence, and the chances of unfortunate people. If you are a fan of dark, crime drama, and a non-linear screenplay, you must not miss this trilogy. The Dollars trilogy that hit the screens in the mid-60s was such an epic class trio that a new subgenre, spaghetti western, has emerged from its influence and cult following, which led to many further films with a similar theme. Many of our modern-day directors like Tarantino drew a huge influence from this trilogy. Of course, the first film, A Fistful of Dollars, is an unofficial remake of Akira Kurosawa's Japanese film Yojimbo. These films got a cult following for the characters like The Man with No Name, El Indio, etc. Unlike many trilogies, this classic did not lose its way after the first or second films. It's the good, the bad, and the ugly that is the best among them, and the soundtrack composed by the legendary composer Ennio Morricone is considered one of the most influential soundtracks in history. films are even loved by the audience who generally despise Western dramas, and maybe that's why Sergio Leone is considered as the godfather of spaghetti Western films. The Three Colors is a French Polish trilogy co-written and directed by one of the most influential and visionary directors of the late 90s, Krzysztof Kieślowski. Of course, he did not intend these films to reflect any political themes, but they are also a study of cultural changes in 1980s Europe. Though known for his pessimistic nature, Kieślowski was deeply philosophical in his work and was occupied with stories that presented the scuffles of people battling loneliness, carnal problems, and adaptation to the modern world. These films are not protraction of the same plot but are connected thematically. They are influenced by the French flag and its symbols, liberty, equality, and fraternity, which are the themes of the three films. Unfortunately, we couldn't see Kieślowski directing another trilogy on which he is working before his death, and Red turning out his last but the best movie. If you're bored of the typical fairy tale love stories and happy forever endings, then the Before trilogy is what you need to watch. If you aren't bored yet, you must still watch the Before trilogy to experience the magic of love despite all the real life circumstances. The films take off with Jesse in his early 20s convincing Celine, a stranger whom he meets on a train journey in Europe, and what happens then before the next sunrise is the first part. Before Sunrise was inspired by a woman whom Linklater met in a toy shop in 1989. They walked around the city together, conversing deep all night. Each of these movies is separated by an interval of 9 years, which helped him to explore the changes in society and the reaction of the characters to that. Linklater counters the idea of old-school rom-coms with his authentic presentation of the idea of a relationship that is accompanied by all the real-life complications surging with time. The films are mostly free-flowing conversations between two people through different stages of their life. According to Ethan Hawke, Before Sunrise reflects on what might be, Before Sunset what could or should be, and Before Midnight what is. The best thing is, you won't end up picking a favorite among them, as every movie is the best.
It's funny. Every single of my exes, then they're married. Men go out with me, we break up, and then they get married. And later they call me to thank me for teaching them what love is. And
if you feel we have missed out any of your favorite trilogies, please do mention them in the comment section. We shall be back with the Indian trilogies, so stay tuned until then.